Hi and welcome to ChinnyVision. In the arcade this game had 3 screens, but at home it only has one. It's Buggy Boy. Buggy Boy was a game famous in the arcades for having not one screen, but 3 screens, giving you a panoramic view. Now I could have sworn blind this game was created by someone like Sega or Namco, but in fact it was created by a company called Tatsumi, and it's looking through their repertoire of games, Buggy Boy does seem to be the most famous. The arcade version came out in 1985, Elite licensed the game, and those came out a couple of years later on the C64, the Spectrum, the CPC, the Amiga and the ST. So the first format I played this on was the Commodore 64, and indeed that's where we're going to start. It's the most famous version, but let's see how it plays. You've got the choice of different courses: off-road, north, east, west and south. Off-road is a single stage that you just keep on going around, and the other levels are multi-stage, so there's different checkpoints as you go on. So the arcade version has massive sprites, and here on the C64 we've got much smaller sprites, but the game does move fairly quickly. You're certainly not driving at 226 kilometers per hour, which seems slightly ludicrous to suggest you are, but there's still a fair bit of speed here. The graphics are a little bit blocky as they scale towards you, all the sound effects are spot on, and the handling is a real joy. Your buggy is responsive and moves quickly, you can dodge out the way of things coming towards you. It's easy to collect the different colours of the flags, because if you collect all the different colours you get bonuses. One thing is when you drive over water, what you do notice is even when you go around corners, the buggy doesn't move in relation to the corners. You're always in fact going straight ahead. You don't notice this when you're on the track so much like we are at the moment, that you're not having to turn left and right to go with the track like you would in a normal racing game, but suddenly when you've got water either side, it becomes really obvious. We've already lapped the off-road circuit there, and you can go around there all day. It's relatively easy. So he moves on to one of the other circuits. I think this is the West Circuit now. And you get these obstacles as well, like these little block things that come up the side of the road that you can sometimes ride up, like there. You can jump over things with the logs. You have to be careful, because some of the logs, when you jump on them, will land you into an obstacle. So it can be a little bit of a test of memory there. But here on the C64, it's an enormously fun game, really good. I've said it before, the C64 isn't a system blessed with lots of good quality racing games, but Buggy Boy is right up there as perhaps the best racer on the system. Moving across to the Amstrad, we have the garish menu screen, and this is really obvious when you come across on the C64, this narrow field of view. The game's a little bit slower, and one thing I've noticed on the Amstrad version here, it's you're not so obvious if you're playing it on its own, but if you're playing it against the C64 version as I have, is on the Amstrad version all the sprites are blue. Everything is blue. Now the Amstrad doesn't have any sprite limitations or anything like that. You can use up to 16 colours on the screen at once and place them anywhere. So why all the sprites and boulders and everything else are blue, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is something Steve Pickford once said about when he was working on Ghosts and Goblins on the Amstrad, that the programmer, and I'm not sure if it is the same programmer, had found a routine to move graphics around faster, but he could only use 4 colours even if you're using the Amstrad's low resolution mode. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of optimization going on here that means all the sprites that need to be scaled have to be within a 4 colour palette. Perhaps some of the guys on the CPC wiki forum can fill me in below perhaps, because they'll certainly know. But on the Amstrad it's pretty good. It's just a little bit slow, and some of the sprites flicker, as you can see there, when they're overlapping and they're close up. I used to play this version because I had an Amstrad, and although I wouldn't have admitted this to my C64 owning friend, the C64 version is way superior. Moving across to the Spectrum, version I haven't played before, and I've heard good things about this version and seen screenshots in magazines. And it's a 128K version here, so we've got some nice AY music. I want to see how this moves. I've seen these large sprites before, and the buggy jumps up and down slightly awkwardly, except when you're going left and right. It's a little bit jerky, but I have to say, look at the size of these sprites. It's just like the arcade. There's colour limitations. Yes, it's a little bit jerky, but it plays really, really well. Far better, I think, than perhaps the video playing here actually shows. The buggy handles well. You don't really notice this slight slowness once you're actually into the game, because you're just trying to deal with the obstacles that are coming up. That said, you can forget, like the Amstrad version, any pretense of collecting the different colour flags. On this version, they're all black. Sound effects are actually slightly better than the Amstrad version, and I really like this idea. When you go over the water, it looks like there's an abyss either side of the track rather than actual water, because everything's stripy yellow and black on this level. Let's move to one of the other stages. This is the north stage. Different colour scheme. Looks slightly better actually here. But no, this plays really well. Far, far better than I thought it would. So Buggy Boy got ported to the brand new 16-bit computers, the ST and the Amiga. Don't have an ST here, and here on ChinnyVision I always try to use the original hardware and capture from that for these reviews. So we're just going to look at the Amiga version. So I've just booted this up here. Slightly plinky-plonk music here on the Amiga. I'm just going to try off-road first. And here we go. Moves really quickly. It's coming straight across on the Spectrum version. This is quite difficult to handle, actually. There's something slightly odd about the handling. It's just a little bit... It's both slightly laggy, and that might be my capture, but it's over-responsive, so it's very difficult to get any fine control on your buggy, combined with the increased speed. The scaling's nice, the animation is nice. Sound effects are okay. One thing I do question here is the Amiga is perfectly capable of recreating the large buggy from the arcade version. So why we have this tiny buggy, I'm not sure. You could have something like the Spectrum version using all the power of the Amiga and have a far better and more accurate arcade emulation, so to speak, than actually what we're seeing here, which is almost a souped up Commodore 64 version. I have to say, almost feels like an Amiga PD game from later years. I know it's not, because this is one of the first Amiga games perhaps I haven't got to grips with the hardware. It doesn't have any of those nice tricks. From what I've seen in the screenshots, it looks very similar to the ST version, and as I say, I think the Amiga could do better, and it's certainly not one of those games I would pick up on the Amiga and want to play, really. I'd go straight to the Commodore 64 version. Looking across the four versions of Buggy Boy we've seen, the Spectrum version is a really nice attempt at recreating the arcade on your Sinclair. It's got 128K sound if you've got a 128K machine, huge sprites, really throws those graphics around, a little bit jerky, yes, but it's a really good game, a really good stab at recreating an arcade machine on the Spectrum. The Amstrad version seems to be trying to ape the Commodore 64 version, but those four colour sprites, there's no need for that. Why have they done that? It looks ugly. It's slightly slow, the sound effects are wrong, the colours where they are slightly garish, and you've got that narrow screen. Back when I had my Amstrad as my only home computer, I was quite happy with it, but now I've got the choice of playing all these different systems and owning them. Well, why would I play the Amstrad version? I could just play the Spectrum or Commodore 64 version. The Amiga version, yeah, it's not terribly good, I'm afraid, and I suspect the ST version probably isn't either. The Amiga version is almost certainly a straight port from the ST. Which leaves us with the Commodore 64 version, which is one of the best arcade conversions on the system. It's one of the best racing games on the system. Let's face it, it's one of the best games on the 8-bit systems overall. It's a must-own game, a must-play game. No matter what system is your favourite, play Buggy Boy on the Commodore 64. It's an absolutely brilliant game. Check out the Spectrum version as well. But certainly the Commodore 64 version on its own stands up today as a really fantastic game no matter what system you own.